YouTube. The stream is alive.
It's alive.
Live.
It's alive.
And I heard Tony say it's alive, so that means we're good to go.
Okay, good deal.
We're here with Rob and Tony. They're going to tell us about the most important part of our little hobby of gaming. It's the socialization. It's about the friendships you make, the relationships you develop. Uh, it, Rob and Tony met from Threat Detected. Uh, Tony's wife now, Lauren, came to the vast bulk of sessions of Threat Detected and befriended the group there. So I think that it's a good time to just reflect on the importance socially of this hobby that we have. Who would like to start?
I can start like you mentioned. You know, I'm married now. I got married a couple weeks ago, and one of my bro of honor at my wedding, Rob, I met right through Threat Detected. That right there is a huge friendship that I have made. Garrett, I met you as well, and you officiated at our wedding. Our service was largely gaming, magic stuff related. We had a lot of, our little wedding favors were custom dice that we had made.
And they roll
Uh,
very well, thank you very much.
oh, good. I'm very glad to hear that.
You
Uh,
indeed.
so a huge aspect of my life is very influenced just in gaming. Everyone from Threat Detected I keep in at least some sort of contact with, even if it's just on Facebook. There's just a wealth of opportunities and adventures, real life and imaginary, to be had that can come straight from around the gaming table.
Yeah, my life would be about 1,000 times different if I hadn't wandered into the stuffy classroom at UB a fateful Saturday night that was so long ago. I mean, Tony, Josh, and Lauren are main, uh, my main fucking time sinks these days. My best friends, people I spend the most time with, and I don't even know what I'd be doing if I hadn't started playing Threat Detected. I might have even moved by now. Who knows? It's just crazy to think about how much a difference a role playing game could make. Just one choice changing your whole life.
Yeah,
I guess I vote
that's
for anything, but
that's very interesting. You bring that up. I remember there was a point where, what was you didn't have a roommate, and you were like, I might have to move back home, but I really don't want to because we were hanging out and having so much fun, and you're like, I don't want to be that far away from you guys because you grew up a couple hours away from where we're at now, and it's a hell of a thing. I've thought about that before in terms of just like my future. Like, well, if I were to be offered like a job or something, how far, or what would I be willing to give up, in terms of that. And those are friendships that through gaming and things like that. There's a community and things that I enjoy here that have all come from gaming, and that goes into consideration for a lot of things. Just last week, someone at work was like, "Oh, we're having a birthday party for like my wife and everything. You're more than happy to have you over and invite you, and you can come and everything." And I was like, "When is it?" And they're like, "Oh, it's gonna be on Saturday afternoon." And I was like, "Oh!" Instantly in my head, I was like, "That'll never happen because I have role playing to do." So things like that. Those impacts that role playing can have in your life because of those friendships. I want to play our games and everything, but more than that, I want to see my friends and be with them and share in those adventures, more than just sit around the table and have them. I want to share those with my friends.
gaming is fun and fantastic. But there's nothing quite like sitting around after the fact and talking about gaming and talking about those sessions and remembering them fondly. I mean, I love those days where we finish World of Darkness slightly early on Saturday or Sunday, and we sit there for like another hour or two talking about World of Darkness because how much we care about it. And yeah, how I don't know. It just every game session brings us closer together as friends too. I don't know. It's such a strange thing. If it weren't for gaming, I wouldn't have the large circle of friends that I do now. Various different types of people that I've met through gaming, and then people that I've met through people that I've met through gaming, and it's just funny to look back on how much your hobbies can affect your life, and especially gaming, which is kind of the last bastion of social interaction left in the world in some ways, where video games you play on the internet and you don't see anyone, you don't know anyone, you don't crowd around the game console like you used to. I mean, dating is set up online. Just I don't know. It's just a different world these days with phones and the internet and everything. And gaming is that one thing where you sit down and even if you have the computer on for music or something, it's you kind of set it away. You bring out the pencils and the dice, and you talk to other human beings for 4 to 8 hours. It's one of the few hobbies out there where you really get to have that intense social interaction with other people these days, which is something to say about it, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. There's so much stigma, maybe a little less so nowadays about oh, nerds in the basement, and they don't do anything, and they're weird, and they don't like to hang out with people and everything. But like the stereotypical nerd thing, Dungeons and Dragons, like gaming is a social construct of getting together with people and having interactions with people. As much as I might be playing, Golteen, the dwarven assassin guy, I'm still sitting there talking about it with Rob, who maybe is playing an orc person or whatever, but like it's still hanging out with Rob and talking with Rob about what we're going to do with our characters and stuff, and it is a very very social thing that I think is often overlooked for some of that stigma, kind of like Rob said, that last bastion of hanging out with people, on a regular basis. You spend so much time around the gaming table, more time than you do in a lot of other contexts with people nowadays.
And it's something you guys want to talk about. It's something we want to talk about. If we can find somebody to talk about gaming, we will. At the table at the wedding, Mary said she's never been at a wedding where she sat at a table where everybody there was a gamer. And
Well, that's
everybody
good.
wanted to talk about their characters. Everybody wanted to tell their stories.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. There's I'm sure most people in our chosen hobbies and everything have that time where you're just like, oh, I don't know, I'm a nerd and I belong in the basement with like they said and everything. But I own that shit now. Anytime at work, someone's like, "What are you doing this weekend?" I'm like, "Role playing for like all day on Saturday." And what are you doing on Sunday? War gaming and mini little soldiers and stuff. And inevitably I'll be like role playing. They'll be like, "What's that?" And then I'm like, "I am so happy to tell you." And I'll launch into a thing and be like, oh, well, D&D is obviously, everyone's heard of it at the very least, regardless of what, preconceived notions they have. And I'll go, oh, we like sit around, we have our characters, like Dungeons and Dragons, like, oh, okay, what's that? And I'll be like, well, you have like a character that you make up that has a whole bunch of different skills and abilities, and you go on adventures and everything. And they're like, well, how does it work? And I'll be like, well, so-and-so, let's say that, right now, we were playing a game, someone, guys bust in through the windows with Uzis and they start like firing. What do you do? And they look at me and they're like, oh my God. They're like, maybe I'm going to try and hide. I was like, okay, well, you're a pretty like dexterous, agile kind of person. So you have that. And how sneaky do you think they're like, well, I guess I'm a little sneaky. I'd be like, okay, you roll this and you get whatever. You successfully hid from them. And they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, what do you do now? They're like, I don't know. But like, instantly, that's my go-to to get anyone kind of intrigued by things. And I find that even if they don't understand it a lot, they at least understand me a bit more, and get rid of some of those notions and everything. And it allows me to talk to people at work about something new and be involved. You don't have to be afraid to show that aspect of your personality.
Yeah, I think if anyone listening is doesn't have a consistent group or consistent people to hobby with, whether it's gaming or otherwise, probably gaming listening to this podcast, but I mean, anything, war gaming, video games. I always tell people to go on to like meetup.com or group meetups, like meetup groups on Facebook that are around your area, wherever you may live. I mean, it was the Buffalo Gamer Society, how I found out about Threat Detected and met these fantastic people in the first place. And I will always support them in whatever way I can, and suggest people to get out there. And I mean, it's you're a little nervous at first. There's people you don't know. It's these random meetup areas. It can be scary, but I always encourage people to go out, to meet new people, to try new things, new places. Uh, they're not all going to be perfect for you. They may not all be 100% great when you first go out, but if you throw enough you throw enough paint, some of it will stick to the canvas, so to speak. And, like I walked into Threat Detected, and I kept going every week until we finished, and I've never looked back. My gaming has increased 300-fold since I started Threat Detected. I have 2 regular game nights plus various other things that I do in the related hobbies, and just if anyone is unsure about meeting new people, please go and try. At least give it a try.
Yeah, I mean, I can 100% speak to that too. I found out about Threat Detected through the D20 radio message boards, where they had their one section of the boards there where I saw just a thread where it was like, oh, gaming group in Buffalo for Star Wars, and I was like, I love Star Wars. I live in Buffalo. This could be for me. And Garrett had posted on there and just said, hey, I'm starting a group in Buffalo if anyone's interested. So I sent him a private message and was like, I am interested. And he's like, great, awesome, shoot me a couple character concepts, we'll get this rolling. And I did, and I was nervous, like Rob said. It was a new thing for me. I was pretty brand new to role playing in general, so I had Josh come with me. I was like, you should do this too. And he's like, okay. So we we went, and it again is a huge turning point, milestone in my life, my gaming career. I like Rob said, can never look back because it's given me so much.
I've heard about your first day. I've heard about Rob's first day. Has Josh ever talked about his first session of Threat Detected? How it affected him?
Um, I'm not sure we've gotten too far into that. I know that he was obviously into it and everything. That the first session was great. Introduction to Star Wars. It's a great hook. We covered a lot of ground, I think. And at that point in the campaign, it was those early days when the group was still, I think, only like 4 people. So I think he had a lot of high hopes for his character and ideas for that. I mean, he with his work schedule and stuff, he was a bit more in and out than most. I think he had a lot of flip flops in there over the 5 years that we were playing, or however
Mm-hmm.
long it was. But yeah, no, I mean he remembers Threat Detected as fondly as any of us, I think.
Okay.
We duo Threat Detected for many hours of gaming in the basement, whether it's Lauren's or yours, Tony's.
Yes, that's true. That's true. I mean, at the very least, there's that. I mean, Rob and Matt, both Josh and I were all very good friends, like Rob said earlier, and there's just games upon games upon games that have just stemmed from that. So at the very least, I'm sure Josh can say that.
And Tony, your wife, what was her response to being there the first few times?
Gosh, that's a great question. I'm gonna ask her because she's staring at me. What was your thoughts the first time coming to Threat Detected and stuff? Like, how was that? What was that like?
I would expect
If
no less of an answer
for
from
those in the back, she said it was boring. But that was at a point where I was like, well, I want to do this thing on Saturdays, and we were, I mean, several years into our relationship at that point, but we didn't do a whole lot, so it was kind of new. And she's like, well, I want to come check out what you're doing, and she would sit there and be like, this is stupid, and this is boring, and I didn't bring enough books to read, and I'm bored with this book. When can we go? And but then like she would get into it, and she made like little portrait initiative cards for us to stick up on the blackboard for a bunch of characters. Made little clay dice for all of us one year. Lots of little things like that, and that eventually transitioned into where we're at now, where Lauren sits at our gaming table every week. She has several tattoos related to our gaming experiences. She's a drug dealer in our campaign. Um, but I mean, there was a point where Lauren was like, "I could never ever game. That's the stupidest thing ever. It's the stupidest nerdy thing, and you belong in your basement." And now she sits in our basement with her character sheets and her many dice bags with many colored dice that she's super excited to roll, and is always disappointed if she gets less than 5 successes on anything.
Because no one rolls quite just in the game.
And it's just she loves it now. She is definitely a gamer. There's I think our first campaign was Mage that she played in, and she was kind of in and out a little bit. She'd be like, "Well, I'm done for the session now. I can only stand 4 hours. I can't make the full 9." But then like Werewolf, she was just like, "I am in the deep end. This is all me all the time."
Now she
and-
has a full werewolf backpiece.
yes, yes, full werewolf back tat. It's pretty legit. So that's a great example of how it can grow, and I think that part of that is Lauren is friends with obviously she's my wife, so I hope she likes me at least a little bit, just a little bit. She's friends with Rob, she's friends with Josh, and I think she saw how much fun we were having, the stories that we were telling, things like that, and she's like, well, I want to be part of that. I want to have that fun with my friends and stuff. They're going on adventures that I'm not part of yet, so I want to be part of it. And I think that's a big part of how it kind of grew in her a little bit.
That's an example of friends that eventually affecting hobby instead of the other way around, because Lauren's presence, I think, only makes things better in the campaigns, because you get that extra character, that extra point of view, and I mean, she's just a different person than Josh and Tony are from each other, and so it's that third lens, and it's just good stuff all around.
Yeah, I know how I'm going to react to situations. I usually have a good idea for how Josh is going to do things. Lauren's a curveball every step of the way. You never know what's coming, and that's good. That's a good thing to have. You don't want everything to be too predictable. If I know that in any given situation how presumably anyone's going to act or whatever, then things can get a little stale, and so like Rob said, that extra point of view just does something completely different for our games that we did not have before. And I agree. I think it's much better for it.
Well, this is something I want to talk about on another show, but I've been thinking about it because my One Ring game, it's 3 players. My Call of Cthulhu cult varies between 2 to 5 players. How do you? There's that's going on what you said. Did you get a sense of what the players are going to do? You get a sense of what's going on. How do you keep it fresh and manage with smaller groups, gaming groups, as opposed to what we had with Threat
Rob?
Detected, where anybody can throw a wrench into everything?
Well, with less players, they are going to get much more screen time. So you get to really learn who those characters are in a way that you just don't with more people. I honestly prefer less people. We have several hours of just Tony and Josh playing in my campaigns. That is some of the best role playing and storytelling that we've had. And that said, Lauren getting added opens up so much stuff too. But the less players you have, the more you get to look at those characters. So you actually get a chance to throw lots of different things at them or different situations at them. Sometimes even if you know a person or know a character, you're never quite sure what they're going to choose. So we're running a changeling campaign currently, and Tony's character is the hands down stand up good guy, like always does the right thing no matter the cost. And I threw some choices at him last session where I don't know what I didn't know what the right thing was, and maybe he didn't know what the right thing was either, because there wasn't a wrong choice per se or a right choice per se. And of course, he ended up doing something completely different and it being totally awesome. But even when you think you know people, sometimes just putting them in a situation that there's maybe several choices that they could make, but you have no idea what they will make. It's sometimes it's not about those big, crazy, separate choices. It's those, well, there's many choices that your person may make, and I guess the best way to put it is more those precise, look at people. It's like, all right, well, we know that if there's bandits around or whatever, he's going to defend the innocent and weak and stuff. Well, what if it's a thief who's stealing from people, but the thief is hungry and the thief is starving and he needs, like, what does the character do then? And then they'll make a choice and you know a little bit more about him. And eventually you can put those choices in front of them, get a look at those characters, get a real great idea. And then by the end of the campaign, you kind of know what they're going to do, or you have that kind of preconceived. And then you don't have to worry about like being a railroading GM, because you can be like, well, whatever they do is great, but they're probably going to do this. And I mean, 9 times out of 10, they eventually will do that. So I don't know. I personally like having less people at the table. I think it's less cluttered. I think the like perfect number for your average game master, dungeon master is 4. I would say 4 people. You get plenty of screen time and you have enough people around to do stuff. But I love 2 and 3 players. I'm never bored. There's always something new to throw at people and see what they do. Even if you know what choice they're going to make, sometimes it's awesome to see how they make that choice. I mean, the paladin is always going to be lawful good and stuff, but how is he going to do it this week can be just as exciting in the ramble that I just spewed out.
So I agree. The first and foremost thing is your players are going to get more of a spotlight, which allows you to just delve into so much more of the aspects of that character. If you're playing in a game with a larger amount of PCs, you might be like, oh, well, that's the good guy. Well, that's the, skeevy guy. That's the, face of the party and everything. But with like 2 or 3 players, you can get down to like, well, he's a good guy because of this. He's a good guy, but he has limits, and this is what they are. He's a good guy, but and you can drill down into that. And I mean, one of the examples is, and we have done this for a couple of our games with only 2 players, but we've talked before on the show about using things like Obsidian Portal or Post and background to give your character a bit more of that fleshing out, to talk about things that you might not see on screen, so to speak. When you only have 2 characters or 3 characters, then you get to actually see those things. You have the time and the availability to put those things in front of PCs and not have other people waiting around for their turn. That being said, the unexpected is definitely, like Rob said, something that can happen. Where like in our werewolf campaign, my character was a spoiled brat very early on. He was just 100%, I'm better than you. My nose could not be long enough for me to look down on it at you. And we got to a point where like we came back and from like the Shadow Realm, and one of the characters, she was like a 17-year-old girl, and her father was outside screaming for her, and found out that she was in, her father was abusive to her. And Rob was like, oh, this is happening, whatever. And I was like, okay, well, I stormed straight outside to go confront him. And Rob was just like, whoa, what? I was totally not prepared for that. And it was something where like you can know what those characters are, but still, completely, throw for a loop because you find out more for it.
I never would have thought Richard would have been the guy to like stand up for the weak and downtrodden.
Yeah, but we found out what the reasons were. My character had a sister who was best friends with this girl. It reminded him very much of her, and she was the thing that he cared about. His sister was the thing that he cared about most in the world, and just to see that embodiment of her, and to know that was happening to something like that, just threw him into a rage, and led to that. I also think that, because I've run a couple games for Justin, Rob, and Josh and everything too, that NPCs are important.
Yes.
Because they can fill Any gaps that you have, when you're just like, well, we need a fighter, a bard, a mage, and whatever, and you only have two of those as PCs. Well, guess who your NPCs are? They're going to fill those gaps, and then you can also put those personalities in there to either cooperate or conflict with your players. So you can, as Rob was saying, present them with a lot of situations that maybe you would get from other PCs, but now you can, as the GM, kind of weave it into stories and manipulate it to kind of make those situations happen and everything. And again, all for the point of driving that story forward. But it's a very important tool, especially when you have fewer players, I think.
Okay. And what other ideas do you guys have for enhancing your group, solidifying your group? Are there tips that you guys have for making a successful gaming group? Uh, Rules that you guys had going in, or things that you abided by to make you guys as successful of a gaming group as you are?
Um, as a GM, I think you need to listen to your players and your friends. If if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, or we're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and Tony and Josh are like dead set on a pirate swashbuckling adventure, I should probably not be writing the like end of the world high fantasy, super serious game. Um, so I guess that leads to I always try to have them involved when it comes to world building in some way or another. Whether it's for every World of Darkness campaign, we build the city together. So we all sit down. We have this big bit of cardboard, and we draw an entire city map out and come up with this fantasy, I guess, or fake city for World of Darkness, so that everyone kind of knows where the game's going to take place. Everyone knows the vibe for it, the feel for it, and I kind of let them help me write a little bit to that end of things. And I think whatever game you're playing, it's important to have the players on ground one, and to also have an idea of what characters they're going to play. Because you want to craft stories around their characters, because they are the protagonist. I hesitate to say heroes; they are the protagonists of the story. Um, and I think that is the building block for any successful group. If you listen to the players and you make them part of the world building, it's kind of hard to fail after that point, as long as everyone is even halfway committed to the game.
Yeah, I think that goes both ways. I mean, it's definitely a conversation between players and GM. It's not a one-sided speech, just where the GM or the players are just dictating what's happening. I know that at any point I can talk to Rob and say, I think I want this to happen for a character, or I think it'd be really cool for this to happen, or I want to try this out, but I'm not sure about it. And I know that Rob will talk to me about how we can make that happen, or whether or not that's maybe a good thing. Like just the other day I was like, oh, I was thinking about like these themes that we have in Changeling, and I think that this thing would be really cool towards the end of kind of finalizing a bit of an arc and like showing up and like kind of fulfilling some of these themes. And Rob was like, that's a really cool idea. I'm gonna make this work at least in some way. So having that comfort to be able to go to him and say, anything that I want, or oh, well, even about other people's characters, where in our Second Thrones campaign I was like, this is what I think my character was going to do, and it completely was to send Josh's character on a suicide mission.
Yeah.
And my character was the king. I have that power and ability to do, but I was like, I think that this is what I could do and what I would want to do. But obviously that's a huge decision to make, a huge gameplay thing. And Rob was like, I think that's really cool. That helps me to kind of write some stuff. And
Wrote
he's
the
like,
last third of the campaign for me.
so but I was able to be confident enough to bring that idea forward. And like he said, it was the final third of the campaign was we kind of split up, and I sent Josh's character on this super undercover mission to try and find out what she could about the bad guy and assassinate him if she could. And it was like, well, you may die and I have to make that choice because I'm the king and it sucks. But that was something that I was able to do. um it's a lot like that, where you can do that. I remember in our Dresden Files campaign where on the GM side of things, I talked to Josh where I was like, okay, Josh, I think what would really be awesome and would really mess up Rob and pay him back for all those Game of Thrones deaths is, is if your character dies. And I'm like, but bear with me. I have plans that, you're not,
Files.
yeah, you're not gonna be dead and everything. You'll be back and everything, but I want to clear that with you. I want to talk to you, make that cool. And that was something on the GM side, of talking to a player, and Josh was like, I think that'd be great, kind of cool. And we talked about it a little bit, and I was like, you gotta trust me. I'm not gonna tell you everything that I'm gonna do, but I'll let you know when it's time, when things are coming, and all that stuff. And he's like, okay, let's do this. And we did. It was a great moment. And then I was also able to turn the table on Josh and be like, well, you're coming back now, but good news, it says a horrible monster because you had to choose this to kind of like get out of it and stuff. And that was a huge arc of stuff. And again, kind of that conversation from the other side of the table. So it's very important. That, I think, kind of bringing it way back around to the beginning, that social aspect, right? These guys are my friends. I can talk to them about these things. Because of that relationship we have, I know that we can have that discourse and all that stuff. All stemming from those early days.
The better you know people and they know you, the more you can get away with them. I mean, you'll know what will push your friends' buttons and what won't. Obviously, you don't want to push the wrong buttons. You want to push the right buttons to get an emotional response, but not necessarily an anger response. But there are many times these days, after years of friendship and years of gaming with me as a GM for the group, that I can just do heinous shit, and Tony will look at me, and I'll be like, Tony, you trust me, right? And he's like, I don't know why, but I do. And then, eventually something will happen later on in the campaign, and he's like, you magnificent bastard. But I'm like, go with me on this one, and they will go with me on the limb, and I do my darndest not to leave them out on it at the end of the campaign.
That's a hell of a thing, and it does happen a lot. where like you trust me, and I go yes, and like for like horrible things happen where like we're put in terrible situations. People we care about are like taken away from us, or we're just put in absolute shitsville. And I know, because I trust Rob, because I'm friends with him, and I know that he has plans and that he's not going to wrong me, that somehow we're going to come out the other side, and maybe not the same, maybe not even better, but having had that sort of adventure. And that all is predicated on a friendship built from gaming. And yeah, I mean, it just leads to more and greater things.
So, last thoughts, guys, on the social aspects of gaming.
As intimidating as it can be, I encourage anyone to try. As we kind of touched upon earlier, there may not be the perfect group right away. There may not be the perfect group after the second time or the third time, but there are 1,000 games, 1,000 groups. There are all sorts of different people out there who want to play just like you. So keep at it. If you don't find the right game or the right atmosphere the first time, try again. There's nothing to say that it's going to be the same every time. There's so many different theories on gaming and everything. Our weekend group has very like character focused style of thing, where Rob, your Tuesday group is much more like dungeon crawl stuff, and they're two completely different groups. But two completely different groups that have two completely different methods of going through games, but are no less fun and valid for you and stuff. So just get out there, try it out, explore, have fun.
Yeah, I guess I'll reiterate that gaming is one of the last bastions of social interaction. It's sort of completely opposite of that stereotype in the 80s or whatever, the nerds in the basement with no friends or whatever. I mean, because of gaming, I have so many friends, and it is so accepted nowadays. At least even as a fringe thing, you're like, oh yeah, they're gaming, like these people. It's socially acceptable now. Yeah, I go out and game if you want to meet new people who may someday be some of your best friends. go out and game with new people, meet new people, spend time with them, and you never know what walking into one dingy classroom or one unfamiliar basement can do for the rest of your life.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys for joining us, and you guys have a wonderful week.
Thank you. You too, Garrett.
As I drop.